Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, on this I know you guys can't see outside right now, but it's very depressing outside. It's raining, and if you're a Giants fan, then you know exactly why it's depressing, the fact that we did not franchise tag Saquon, but I digress. That's football. We're here to talk about basketball, and in the first segment, we are going to look at the Milwaukee Bucks. I said in previous podcasts before that I was going to go ahead and catch up on the Bucks after the All-Star break, see where they're at right now. So far, they've been looking much better of a team than they were before the All-Star break, so I'm going to talk about that. And we are in the middle of March. Well, we just started March, so as always, obviously not as always, we're going to talk about the mid-major tournaments, and we're going to give a little preview on those games. And then in the third segment, we have our NBA recap, as always, where I give just a quick recap of all the games that happened last night, because there was a lot of them, and there were a couple of important games. And we also have a fourth segment, and I reveal that at the end of this third segment, so stay tuned for that. But before I begin talking about the Bucks in this segment, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is GSMCPodcast.net, and it puts your comments directly in front of my screen. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about the Bucks. But actually, before I talk about the Bucks, I haven't really talked about this, and it's not long enough to really be its own segment, so I might as well give a little bit of an injury update for some of the key players to some of these teams. Scottie Barnes, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Scottie Barnes. He's great for fantasy, and he's a great addition for the Toronto Raptors. He recently underwent surgery on his fractured hand, and going into the season, I think it was the best move for him to have surgery now, given how the Raptors' season is not really its best, and they aren't really in a good spot to do anything in the play-in or do anything in the postseason, matter of fact. But Scottie Barnes is the only player to lead his team in every single stat. That sounds like a LeBron thing. That's usually a LeBron thing to do, to lead his team in every single stat. But I just wanted to touch on that, as well as Westbrook, who also suffered a fractured hand. He broke his left hand and is expected to have surgery and make his return come playoffs, assuming that the Clippers can stay alive long enough in the playoffs for that to happen. But that's just a quick injury update on some key players to important teams. But let's go ahead and start talking about the main segment and the first segment, which is about the Milwaukee Bucks coming out of All-Star break. And they've been phenomenal coming out of All-Star break. They've won all 6 of their games, and they just won their most recent game going against the Clippers while being short-handed. No Giannis, no problem for the Bucks. And it was Dame time all night last night. Damian Lillard ended the game with, I'm pulling up the box scores right now, he ended the game with 41 points in 42 minutes on 12 for 22 shooting. Finally, it looks like the Bucks, they figured it out. Another key player to the Bucks winning was Bobby Portis, arguably a Sixth Man of the Year candidate, probably going to end up winning it. Who knows? We'll see how it goes in the end. He shot 12 of 18 from the field and ended the game with 28 points and 16 rebounds. So obviously, his production went up when Giannis was sitting out. And this was a very impressive win for the Bucks, given how the Clippers, even though they're shorthanded on Russell Westbrook, let's face it, Russell Westbrook is not the same player, not the same animal that he always has been, or that he was in his MVP season, or in previous seasons with other teams like Houston. Houston Russell Westbrook was my favorite Russell Westbrook. It's a very unpopular opinion, but he was my favorite version of Russell Westbrook. And other than his MVP year, which honestly made me watch basketball consistently and made me watch it a lot more. And they again, like I mentioned earlier, matched up against the Clippers, and it's not like the Clippers they played bad. Harden ended the game with 29 points, and Paul George also ended the game with 29 points. So there was a lot of scoring, but Kawhi Leonard, he did not show up in this game, and to be fair, he didn't really need to show up on the offense, given how dominant like Harden and Paul George were on the offense. But he did show up on the defense, getting 4 steals and forcing 4 turnovers for the Bucks, or against the Bucks, and however, he shot 6 of 19 from the field. Now, normally, like I'd say this is a problem, but this is Kawhi Leonard, and this is a guy who he has the reputation of being able to turn it on and turn it off. And in the playoffs, he rarely ever turns it off. He's like a machine in the postseason. And I know he blew a 3-1 lead with the Clippers when he was healthy, but he played very well in games 5 and in game 6 to close out those games. It's just the rest of the team didn't show up. And again, but let's focus more on the Bucks. Like you guys know how I feel about the Clippers, and like how I think of them in the regular season, and how I think of them in the playoffs, and how I'm not really sure they can really do much in the playoffs, but we'll see given time. But focusing on the Bucks, winning without Giannis. Obviously, like Dame, he had a great game, and it honestly, like, it makes me question: does Dame play better when he doesn't have Giannis? And it's a little bit difficult to explain because, like, I understand how if your best player isn't playing, that means your second best player is going to be able to take more shots and be able to like produce a lot more on the offense because he's going to have the ball a lot more. But at the same time, I feel like if he played with Giannis, like from just a like an analytical standpoint, it sounds like a good idea. I mean, given how Dame played on Portland, now giving him help and giving him a lot more options, it should elevate his efficiency, similar to how when Kevin Durant left the Oklahoma City Thunder to go join the Golden State Warriors, while his points production, it sort of went down given how he had to share the ball with Clay and Stephen Curry and Iguodala, all of those great offensive players, Sean Livingston. It's his efficiency, like while his scoring production went down, his efficiency went up because his team was really good and it allowed him to operate and get a lot easier looks, whether it be at the rim, at the mid-range, at the three, doesn't matter. It allowed him to get a lot easier looks. And with that logic of like having a second option and giving like a player a lot more options to score and a lot more room to score, Dame should be doing the same thing. But so like overall, like he hasn't been doing that. Obviously, he did that this game. Like he produced very well this game. But overall, he just hasn't met that production that the Bucks needed. But again, like the Bucks, they've been on the 6-game win streak, and before they fired their previous head coach, I really had the Bucks being able to win it all and being able to actually and legitimately compete against the Boston Celtics. But so far, with how Boston has been rolling, it doesn't really look like that's going to be the case. Now, let's go over some of these games that the 6-game winning streak that they've been on. So they beat the Timberwolves to come out of All-Star break, which is great because the Timberwolves were ranked number 1 in the Western Conference, so they matched up pretty well there. They had Giannis, they had Dame, they had every player that they needed, and they all produced very, very well. Dame produced pretty well, 21-10, and Giannis produced pretty well, 33-13. And the rest of the team, they hit their shots, they played very consistent, and they were able to end up winning the game in the end. And it was a really close game. So, excuse me. But the next game that they won against was against the Sixers. Now, The Sixers, they've gotten worse since they don't have Joel Embiid. So this win is sort of like a no-brainer for them. But the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because they've been losing to incompetent teams and teams that really shouldn't be beating them. So the fact that they were able to beat the Sixers is, like, I wouldn't say impressive, but it's definitely like a step forward in the previous direction that they've been going in. And obviously, like, again, Dame and Giannis, they both produced. Dame ended the game with 24, 9, and 7. Giannis ended with 30 and 12. Now, I'm not expecting, like, huge numbers from them and, like, ridiculous stats from them. Just consistent stats and enough stats that allow the team to win. And that's what you need at the end of the day. And now the next two games that they won were both against the Charlotte Hornets. I'm not really going to talk about that as much because, like, it's expected that the Bucks beat the Charlotte Hornets, and the Charlotte Hornets are one of the worst teams in the NBA. So it makes sense how they ended up beating them. And the next game that before the Clippers game that I mentioned was against the Chicago Bulls. Now, obviously, like, the Chicago Bulls, they're not in the best position to make any type of noise in the playoffs, let alone in the play-in. So, with that being said, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the games that the Bucks have played and the Bucks have won against have been against, I wouldn't want to call them bum teams, but, like, teams that are, like, that aren't above average, I guess you could say, or, like, teams that are average. So, with that in mind, is this 6-game winning streak impressive for the Bucks? I mean, again, like, they've only played against, like, relatively, like, teams that aren't that competitive in fighting for a playoff spot. The Charlotte Hornets twice, and the Bulls at one point, and the Sixers now, given how, like, I don't think the Sixers are going to they're going to make the play-in. The Sixers are going to drop all the way to the play-in, and I don't really see them making much noise until Joel Embiid gets back, if he gets back. And what makes this winning streak impressive, for me at least, is the fact that they ended up beating the Clippers and the Timberwolves, and that's really, like, the only impressive thing from this winning streak that they got. They play the Warriors tomorrow, and they play the Lakers in a back-to-back, like, right after they play the Warriors. So that's 2 play-in teams and, like, 2 teams that everybody sort of respects, given that they have 2 of the best players in NBA history, Steph Curry on the Warriors and LeBron James on the Los Angeles Lakers. So, depending on if they're able to keep this winning streak going, that's going to be dependent on where I feel they're going to be at come playoff time. And it's a little bit competitive, I will say, because, like, now they're sort of in, like, a bit of a hole. It doesn't seem like the Boston Celtics are going to go on a losing streak anytime soon, but at the same time, like, the Bucks, they were really close to catching that 1 seed and passing the Celtics, and they let that slip away the second they got rid of their coach and they decided to get Doc Rivers. And it's really, like, I wouldn't really say that it's infuriating, but it's like it's not the smartest move for them to do that. Like, I've said it previously on several podcasts, but, like, it really, like, it boggles my mind how they go from almost competing with Boston to just not really being that important of a team, or not a team that could compete with Boston, in my eyes. I'm not sure, in certain Bucks fans' eyes, I wouldn't be surprised if they do, or if they do think that they can compete and go up against the Celtics. But given how they've been playing recently, before the All-Star break, it didn't really look like they had a standing chance to compete. But right now, it definitely looks like they can. They just reclaimed the 2nd spot in the Eastern Conference, passing the Cavs and the New York Knicks. The Knicks got really unlucky with injuries with Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, and Jalen Brunson. Until those guys are healthy, I don't really expect much from the Knicks. I do expect them to stay afloat and not make the play-in, however, but they really need Brunson. And other than the Bucks, I believe the Knicks are the only other team that's able to compete against the Boston Celtics because this Celtics team is looking ridiculous. I talked about them yesterday, and they're phenomenal. They're great. And with that, we are out of time for the first segment, so I'm going to go ahead and break into the second segment where we talk about March Madness, obviously, and some of the mid tournaments that are going on right now. That to see the mid-major tournaments because obviously the bracket has yet to be decided right now, and the teams that need to make the bracket are going to be decided by these mid-majors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those games that are coming up, the favorites, this, that, and the other, and I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in the second segment, we are going to be looking at the mid-major tournaments that are going to be going on, and a bit of a preview of some of the favorites that are expected to make it out and represent their conference in the NCAA tournament. But before I begin with the second segment, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, to please use the link that's in the description or displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCPodcast.net. It gets your comments recognized, and it really helps the show if you go ahead and donate. But with that out of the way, we can go right ahead into the March Madness preview, where we talk about some of the teams that are expected to make it out. And let's begin, because it's a very long list. So first we have the America East. The top seeds in the America East are Vermont, UMass Lowell, and Bryant. And the games are going to happen on March 9th, the 12th, and 16th. So Vermont could climb as high to the number 13 seed in the NCAA tournament if they win this in this mid-season tournament. So the projected champions for this game are obviously going to be Vermont. The past 3 seasons, Vermont has lost a total of 3 American East games. So it's very difficult to pick against them, and they also lead the conference. So I believe that they have the best chance of representing I believe Vermont has the best chance of representing the America East Conference going into the NCAA tournament. And let's continue on with this list because it's a very long list. Now we have the Atlantic Sun Division, and the conference is ranked 26 out of 33rd. The top seeds are Eastern Kentucky, Stetson, and Lipscomb. And the Atlantic Suns, they could crack at the top, the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. They could, but it is the Atlantic Sun champion is a strong candidate for the 16th seed, really. So it's as wide open as it gets in this one. So it's really difficult to pick a champ on who's going to represent this conference. And the preseason favorite was Eastern Kentucky, but the Colonels entered the ASUN tournament on a 2-game losing streak, and it's a high score. The high-scoring Lipscomb is the only ASUN team to reach 20 wins, or crack the top 200. But the Bison, who's at the 3rd seed, they've played like the whole season without Jacob Ognasevich. Forgive me if I messed up that last name. It's really difficult to pronounce. And they lost their leading scorer, Darren Boyd, with a torn ACL. So not entirely sure exactly like if they're going to make it out. It's really difficult to decide. Next is the Big Sky division. The top seeds are Eastern Washington, Northern Colorado, and Montana. The Big Sky tournament is projected to be, the winner of this tournament is projected to be the number 15th seed in the NCAA tournament. And honestly, a lot of people have faith in the 4th seeded Weber State to emerge as the contenders. And it includes Eastern Washington, Montana, and Northern Colorado. In the preseason, the favorites were the Wildcats, and they beat St. Mary's, Yale, Wyoming in non-league play, and they've won 8 straight games. And the 10 midseason after they won 8 of the 10 games in a midseason slump. So it's really difficult again to choose like which team is going to make it out of this one. I think like it's obviously like it's easy to choose the number 1 seed to make it out, but again, like anything can happen in March Madness. So I'm not entirely sure on which team is going to make it out of this one. Next is the Big South. The top 3 teams are High Point, UNC Asheville, and Gardner-Webb. So whoever wins the Big South, again, it's projected to be the number 15 seed. And it obviously like depends on who wins the previous conference, which was the Big Sky Conference. So again, it all depends on which team ends up winning and making it out in the end. And everyone wants to see High Point versus UNC in the title game. And that would be a very nice matchup. And between those two teams, I think UNC has the best chance of making it out. I don't know why. It's just a feeling in my mind. And I expect another tight game with Pemmer leading Asheville to a win. And like at High Point, I know they like play at High Point, and they're going to make their 2nd straight Big South tournament. They're going to win their 2nd straight Big South tournament title, and hopefully they end up making it to the tournament. But that's my pick. Next is the Coastal Athletic Association. The top 3 teams in this conference are Charleston, Drexler, and Hofstra. Now, this team is projected to be the 14th seed. Well, whichever team comes out is projected to be the 14th seed going into the NCAA tournament. And it's really difficult to pick against Charleston. And they just came off of last year winning 31 games last season and another outright CAA regular season title. So the trio of juniors, Ante Brzovic, Ben Burnham, and Rain Smith, they've been the focal points of this team. They've been the big 3, and they shoot a lot of three-pointers, and that has sort of carried the Cougars to 9 straight wins to end the regular season. So it's really difficult to pick against Charleston in this one, and I believe they're going to make it out of the Coastal Athletic Association. Now, next is the Horizon League. Now, the 2 teams that are the top 3 teams, are Oakland, Youngstown State, and Green Bay. The Horizon Tournament champ, they're unlikely to receive anything higher than a number 15th or a 14th seed in the NCAA tournament. So not entirely sure if they're going to be able to do much in the tournament other than just represent their conference. And only twice in the past decade has the Horizon League regular season champion won the conference tournament. So that trend is like it might still be prevalent for Oakland, excuse me, which was a surprise league winner. So I wouldn't be surprised if Youngstown State is able to make it out and represent their team in this division. However, I do think Trey Townsend is going to be a key player that would carry Oakland if Oakland ends up winning. Obviously, like I'm very superstitious. So with that in mind, like I really think that superstition is going to be much more prevalent in this league, in the Horizon League, than in any other league. But let's continue going down onto the list. We have the Missouri Valley, which is ranked 9th out of 33 in the conference, like in terms of conference rankings. The top three seeds are Indiana State, Drake, and Bradley. So this right here is Indiana State's chance to secure an auto bid and avoid leaving its fate in the hands of the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. So either the Sycamores win 3 games in 3 days, or they wait to see if they've done enough to secure a large bid in this tournament. So the projected champions of this one, like it's between Indiana State and Drake, and they came down to the final week of the regular season, and the Sycamores claimed the outright regular season title by a single game on Sunday when they beat Murray State. And honestly, like again, with how competitive this conference really is, it is very difficult to decide which team is going to end up making it out. But I have faith in Bradley. I have no idea why. Like it's just a feeling that I've got. I think Bradley is going to represent this team. Now, next we move into the Northeastern Conference. So this is one of the worst conferences, but it doesn't matter. The top seeds are Central Connecticut State, Merrimack, and Sacred Heart. So the winner of the NEC tournament is projected to be the number 16 seed, and they'll have a chance to pull off what Dickinson did a year ago, and Purdue wants no part of that for whoever comes out of that tournament. Let's go Jersey, am I right? So only a year ago, Merrimack won the NEC tournament after being like in Division I like for the first time, but it was ineligible to receive an NCAA bid because, like, again, they've only been Division I for literally 1 year. So this year, if the Warriors go back-to-back, they'll also get to participate in March Madness, and they'll represent their team in the in this Northeastern Conference. So I have high faith in Merrimack, given how they've won the conference last year. Now, the next conference is the Ohio Valley Conference. So the top 3 teams in this conference are Arkansas Little Rock, Tennessee Martin, and Morehead State. So the winner of the Ohio Valley Conference is projected to be no higher than the number 15 seed in the tournament. So Morehead State was a heavy favorite before a 3-game mid-February losing streak, and dropped the Eagles into a 3-way tie for first place. And they shared the OVC regular season title with Arkansas and Tennessee, but settled for the number 3 seed in the conference tournament. So with that in mind, this one is going to be probably the most difficult to decide, given how the 1 through 3 are tied. But like the road that the Eagles take for the NCAA tournament is now a little tougher than it appeared to be a few weeks ago, given how they dropped. But they still have a shot. They definitely still have a chance. So next we have the Patriot League, another one of the bad conferences, but again, it doesn't really matter. The top seeds are Colgate, Boston University, and Lafayette. Colgate projects to be a number 15 seed in the NCAA tournament if it claims the Patriots League automatic bid. Any other champion that comes out of this tournament is most likely going to receive a number 16 seed and would be lucky to needing to avoid a play-in game. So there is more overwhelming favorite, like conference tournament, there's not much of an overwhelming favorite in this tournament than Colgate. And the Red Raiders went 16-2 in the league play, but every other Patriot League team lost at least 8 conference games. And the Raiders are respectable 130th in net rankings, and no one else in the Patriot League is higher than 274. So with that in mind, they have the best chances of making it out of this tournament and representing their team in the Patriot League. Next, we have the Southern Conference, which the top 2 teams in the Southern Conference are Samford, UNC, Greensboro, and Chattanooga. So Samford projects to be like a very dangerous 13 seed in the NCAA tournament if it claims the conference's automatic bid, but any other tournament champion would most likely be number 14. So Samford is the clear favorite after winning the SoCon regular season title by 3 games over its closest competition. The Bulldogs, 26-5, they have a gaudy record, though they lost to the only 2 top 100 opponents they faced in non-league play. So who could challenge Samford? And honestly, the 4th-seeded Western Carolina team can challenge them. They've won 22 games. They beat Notre Dame, they beat Vanderbilt and McNeese State in non-league play. So they definitely have if there was a team that was going to beat Samford, that team definitely has the best chances of making it. I know they're a 4th seed, but that doesn't matter. So next we move to the Southland Conference, where we have McNeese State, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and the 3rd seed we still don't know yet because there's still another game that needs to be played. And McNeese hopes to avoiding an anxiety-ridden Selection Sunday and rest on winning in the Southland's auto bid with a 27-3 record and road wins against VCU, Michigan, UAB. They would certainly merit to look as an at-large. They look like the best team, and they look like the team that's going to end up representing the conference. But McNeese State would rather win Southland's auto bid than to remove all doubt by losing in any of these important games. Now, next we move on to the Summit League, where the top 3 teams in the Summit League are South Dakota State, Kansas City, and North Dakota. So the winner of the Summit League might need upsets in other leagues to avoid the number 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. And that's especially true if the winner is anyone besides South Dakota State. So South Dakota is the projected champs, and they're looking for its 8th Summit League tournament title since 2012. Excuse me for saying 8 straight. That's not true. And they won the regular season by 2 games. And the Jackrabbits, they're the clear favorite, though the 2nd-seeded Kansas City, they closed the season with 6 straight wins. So they might need to watch out for that in case they go on and make a run in the NCAA tournament. Next, we have the Sun Belt Conference. The top 3 teams are Appalachian State, James Madison, and Troy. So James Madison, they validated the season opening with a win at Michigan State and finished the season with a 28-3 record. Appalachian State is 26-5. They beat Auburn in a surprise win in early December, and then they won the outright Sun Belt regular season title, sweeping a pair of games from James Madison along the way. So both of these teams are capable of advancing to the NCAA tournament, and at least one will endure agonizing, lightly disappointing wait until Selection Sunday to find out if they've done enough to earn an at-large bid. So it would be a crime if the title game doesn't put James Madison against Appalachian State. And between the quality of those 2 teams and the potential all or nothings that's at stake, it might be the best matchup of conference tournament play in the entire NCAA. So I'm looking forward to this matchup, and I really have no idea who's going to come out. Next, we have the West Coast Conference, and the top 3 teams are St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and San Francisco. So St. Mary's and Gonzaga are playing to improve their NCAA tournament seeding, and the Gales could be at risk of falling into the 8 or the 9 seed range if they fail to win the WCC tournament. But the Zags have a chance to climb out of that range with 2 more wins in Las Vegas. So between the quality of St. Mary's and Gonzaga and a format that grants the top 2 seeds a bye until the semifinals, the WCC title game likely will feature the Gales and the Zags. And St. Mary's and Gonzaga, they split their 2 regular season meetings. And it's, again, like with that in mind, it's very difficult to decide which team is going to end up coming out in this conference because of how competitive this conference really is. So next, let's move on to some of the other games that are happening. Let's go to the ACC tournament, which is going to begin March 6th and March 10th. And it's going to be at Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina. So, and then there's also the Big 12 tournament that's going to be coming out. That's going to be March 7th through 12th. And some of the other tournaments that are having the Big East tournament happening 8 to 11 in Connecticut. And we're going to go see UConn is obviously like the favorite to come out of the Big East. And I didn't mention the other teams that are the favorite to come out. That's my bad. Texas, in the previous conference that I mentioned, in the Big 12 tournament, they had a better season. Like Oklahoma is going to enter Kansas City with a top seed this week. And the Sooners, after a 1-point win over the Longhorns last week, claimed the double bye alongside Texas, Kansas State, and Iowa State. And though that Red River rivalry rematch in the championship game would be fun, any of those 4 teams that I just mentioned could realistically win and make it all of the way. Now, let's keep looking at the Big Ten tournament. I already said that, like, the Big Ten tournament, like, the teams in the Big East, I said Big East before. I mentioned how UConn is going to end up being the favorites in winning this seeds. Like, UConn is just a unit, and I'm hoping that they end up winning because, like, since I go to school in Connecticut, it's going to be a lot of fun if UConn is able to repeat again around the neighborhood. I'm sure if any of you guys are college students, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But with that out of the way, we are out of time with the second segment, so I'm going to go ahead and break into the third segment where I give a quick recap of the NBA games. We're going to shift right back into NBA basketball right after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about a little recap of the NBA games that happened last night, because there were a lot of important ones. I already mentioned how the Bucks beat the Clippers last night, 113-106, and how James Harden and Paul George, they had a great game. But one thing that really stood out for me in this game that I didn't really mention was how the Bucks ended up outscoring the Clippers 40-25 in the fourth quarter. So again, like the Clippers, they just can't seem to close out games. This was a problem when they played against the Lakers, and it's a problem going against the Bucks. They can, without Giannis, they cannot close out games. So imagine what happens when they go into the playoffs. How are they going to close out these close games if they cannot do that in the regular season? that is something for you guys to answer. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If the Clippers are going to forget about their little problems being unable to close out games and actually be able to do something in the postseason. But other than that game, let's talk about the other LA team, which is everyone's favorite topic to talk about, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. They ended up beating the Oklahoma City Thunder again. This time they won 116 to 104. The Lakers are very, very confusing. They are a very confusing team, and so is the Oklahoma City Thunder. For one, I can't take either team seriously. Like, the Lakers, they lose to, some bum teams, some really bad teams, and then they win against really good teams. And the Thunder, they win against really good teams as well, but then they, lost to the Pistons that one time, and then they lose to, a bunch of games where they shouldn't lose, like this one right here. And LeBron James, he didn't even play all that well in this game. I mean, he didn't have 20 points, but that doesn't mean he played bad, I will say. He ended the game with 19 points, 7 for 14 from the field, with 11 rebounds and 8 assists. Obviously, he still didn't. That's not bad. I'm not saying that LeBron played bad, but usually when LeBron wins, he has to end up getting 30-plus points or 25-plus points in order for the Lakers to stand a chance. But so far, it really looks like that the rest of this team has sort of come through. D'Angelo Russell was phenomenal in this game. He ended with 26 points, was leading all the Lakers in scoring, 9 for 17 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3. Anthony Davis ended the game with 24 and 12 on 7 of 12 shooting. Not bad, but again, not as dominant as I expect from someone whose name is Anthony Davis. And they ended up winning, sure, but it's come on now. He needs to be a lot more dominant if they are expected to do anything in the postseason. Roy Hachimura, he didn't have a great game tonight, only 3 of 8 from the field with 7 points, but not really expecting him to really do much as I expect LeBron, AD, and D'Lo to do much. Austin Reeves has been pretty consistent so far coming out of the All-Star break. He's been 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, 16 points. And Spencer Dinwiddie, he ended the game with 2 points, 1 for 4. And he played 24 minutes. Why is he playing so long if he's only going to score 2 points? Why? Does not make any sense. If you're going to use him that way and not make him a 20-point-per-game scorer, why is he playing so many minutes? He's just wasting everyone's time. And I don't mean to be, disrespectful or, mean or anything, but, that's what the numbers are showing. 1 for 4 from the field, I'm sorry, but, that only hurts your team, especially when you're playing 24 minutes. You're just running back and forth, jogging. And it's not like he did, he had other good stats and, in rebounds or assists. No, he only ended with 2 rebounds and 3 assists. That's not going to help them. And on the Thunder side, Shai didn't end the game with his signature 31 points, which is honestly probably why this team wasn't as close to beating the Lakers as they normally would. Chet ended the game with 15 points on 6 for 14 from the field. If he was such a good Rookie of the Year candidate, then he would definitely impact these guys in wins, but it doesn't really look like he's doing that. It's almost like the Oklahoma City Thunder have an MVP candidate, and that's why they've been winning a bunch of games. I don't understand the argument for putting Chet in Rookie of the Year. Yes, I understand that the Thunder are winning games, but it's not because of Chet, it's because of Shai. Shai is literally an MVP candidate. What the hell is the matter with people? But I digress on that point. And Chet, Chet and Shai, they were the only people that really did something in this game. Lou Dort ended the game with 15 points. So obviously, if he's going to be your second leading scorer, and he's not even a scorer, that's a big problem for OKC. He shot relatively efficient too from 3. He went 5 of 7 from the field. But with this game out of the way, let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, and let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies beating my Brooklyn Nets so far. This Brooklyn Nets team is really putting me through it. I gotta say, they're really testing my patience with these guys. Like, they're really testing my patience. They had two great wins against the Hawks, but the Hawks they didn't have Trae Young in either of those games. And it's like, okay, we were able to beat them, but like they didn't even have their best player. So it's like, how do we know that we wouldn't have lost, that the Nets wouldn't have lost those games if it weren't for that? And they lost this game right here to the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are not a good team. They are not the best team. Claxton was the best player, and he shot the most efficient. You know it's a problem when the guy who can't shoot shoots the most efficient on your team. He ended the game with 21 points. Cam Johnson ended the game 6 of 15 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3. Mikal Bridges ended the game 4 of 14 from the field and 2 of 8 from 3. Dennis Schroeder, 5 of 13 from the field and 2 of 7 from 3. That is just phenomenal work from the Nets right there. Phenomenal. That is totally going to have us winning these games. And of course, guess who didn't play? Ben Simmons. Of course he didn't play. Why would he play? What does it matter if he plays, right? He's not a basketball player. It's not like he's 6'10". Jeez. The Grizzlies, they absolutely, like, again, it was a close game, but it doesn't matter. Like, the Nets, I'm moving on because I seriously cannot talk about this game. Now we go up against Minnesota beating Portland yet again. They always beat Portland. It's really no contest. Like, Portland, well, they did have a great performance from Simmons, not Ben Simmons, Fernie Simmons. He ended the game with 34 points and 14 assists. It wasn't enough to beat the Timberwolves, and with all of their scoring. And Anthony Edwards, he came off the bench this game because he showed up late. Kind of funny. He ended the game with 13 points. Not very good. And he shot 40% from the field, 4 of 10. So Rudy Gobert was actually the leading scorer of the Timberwolves, which is a very rare sight to see. Ended the game with 25 points, hit all of his free throws, and went 9 of 10 from the field. So a very good game coming in from Rudy Gobert. Karl Anthony Towns was inefficient, 5 of 12. Mike Conley was also a little bit inefficient, 6 of 13. 2 of 6 from 3 in particular is what I was talking about. 2 of 6 and 0 for 3 between Mike Conley and Karl Anthony Towns. So obviously, like, their three-point shooting definitely needs to improve if they are expected to do much in the playoffs. And, like, again, like, the last time that they were in the playoffs, I remember they blew 2 20-point leads, and it's really not something that you want from a team. So with their, like, playoff resume in mind, I'm not entirely sure if they're going to be one and done this year, but I wouldn't put it past them to be one and done. Now, obviously, like, the fact that it was a close game going against Portland is also very concerning. The next game that I actually brought this game up in a short, there was a pool party over at Utah. Jordan Poole, he opened up the Wizards game going up against the Utah Jazz, going 8 for 8 from the field, and he ended the half going 8 for 9 from the field with like 23 points, I believe. But after that, the Utah Jazz at the halftime were like, all right, the pool party's canceled. And after the half, he ended up going, let's do some quick math right here, 3 of 9. After the pool party, he ended up going 3 of 9 and ended up missing every single one of his threes. So, fantastic for Jordan Poole, am I right? He got his first few seconds in the spotlight, and now he's back to being Jordan Poole. Now, does this mean that the Wizards should put him back in the starting lineup? No. It doesn't matter where you put Jordan Poole. He's still going to make your team lose because of his terrible shot selection, his ego, and his style of play. I'm not a big fan of Jordan Poole, if you guys could not tell. Players that have an ego like that and don't play like their ego tells them to play, like their ego says they can play, not a big fan of it. You got to be able to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. And the Utah Jazz, like, they're in a rebuild state right now. So the fact that this rebuilding team was able to beat the Wizards just shows how bad this Wizards team really is with Jordan Poole. And Colin Sexton ended the game with 29 points in 34 minutes with 7 assists as well. Was without a doubt the best player on the floor. And Jordan Clarkson off of the bench ended the game with 38 points and 10 rebounds. So it really just shows that the Wizards, their defense is so bad they can't even guard a parked car. Like, it is really bad how, like, their defense. And we're running out of time in this segment, so I'm going to go ahead and speed run some of this stuff. Oh, there's only one game that was being played left. The Chicago Bulls, they ended up beating the Sacramento Kings. Now, this is a very surprising loss for the Kings. And the Kings, they moved down to the play-in. They play the Lakers tomorrow, so we'll see exactly, like, what their position in the Western Conference really is. But losing to the Bulls is not ideal. It's definitely not something that they want. Kobe White has been phenomenal. He scored 37 points, has an argument for being most improved player of the year as well. Let's see. Ayo Dosunmu, again, like, forgive me if I botched that last name. He ended the game with 20 points, and DeMar DeRozan ended the game with 33 points. So, and DeMar DeRozan shot 10 for 12 from the field. If they play like this every single game, they're going to be a great team if they play like this every single game. But it's just the Bulls are not consistent enough to be able to do that. And with that in mind, like, it makes me understand why, like, Vucevic wants to keep this team together. Like, they're in the play-in right now, and honestly, they have a good shot at beating the Pacers. As crazy as it sounds, they have a great shot at beating the Pacers because the Pacers, their defense is horrible. So if the defense is that horrible and they allow the Bulls to make a lot of shots, which they are capable of doing, we could potentially see the Pacers getting knocked out of the first round or even in the play-in, come to think of it, given how the Pacers are ranked 8th in the Eastern Conference. They should be a lot higher. They should be way higher in the rankings. The Magic and the Sixers shouldn't even be in these rankings right now in the top 8 teams. But like, with this in mind, it's like the Pacers, like, the fact that they're all the way down to the 8th seed is very, very disappointing, and it's all because of their defense. But with that, that's the end of the recap. We're out of time for this third segment, so tune in for the fourth segment, where we talk about the NBA power rankings. I didn't talk about them yesterday because I wasn't sure if they had released, but now that they're out, we might as well go ahead and look at it yet again. So I will be right back after this short break. And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to be looking at the NBA Power Rankings because they were just released 23 hours ago. So we're going to go ahead and look at that. So let me just go ahead and pull it up on my screen real quick. But before we look at the power rankings for this week, we're going to go ahead and look at the power rankings from last week and see exactly, like, I'm going to make some predictions on what I think should change and like which teams should be moved up, which teams should be moved down, that sort of thing. And that's what we're going to end up talking about. So let me just go ahead and put this right over here so like I could go ahead and see the chat just in case any of you decide to comment. But regardless, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. Obviously, the Celtics, they're going to be number one, and they're also going to be number one going into the next week power ranking, because I believe this team is going to be the biggest team that does not change. They're going to be number one yet again. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, I honestly think that the Timberwolves, I feel like they deserve to move down in the rankings, and they should move down all the way to 3, just because like I personally think that the Denver Nuggets should hold that second spot in the power rankings. That's just me, though. Oklahoma City, they're definitely going to move down. I remember the previous week from this rankings, they were 5. They might move all the way back down to 5, given how they just lost to the Lakers. And, like, losing to the Lakers, I understand, like, the Lakers are a very competitive team with LeBron James and all that, but still, losing to the Lakers is not ideal for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Clippers, I believe they're going to stay at the 4th spot right now, given how, like, again, they beat the Timberwolves, but now they end up losing to the Bucks. And they beat the Timberwolves because their defense was really, really good, but their offense was lacking with James Harden missing every single shot. Now, the Nuggets, again, like I said earlier, they should move up. They should not be 5. They should be top 3. They should be a top 3 team right now. Like, they are incredibly dangerous because, again, like, unlike the Oklahoma City Thunder, they can actually beat the Lakers. So they should definitely move up in the rankings. And like Jokic, Jamal Murray, we all know just how elite that they are, and we all know how good of a players they are. Cleveland should. Now, since from the time of this, Cleveland was ranked 2nd in the Eastern Conference, and since then they moved down to 3rd. So maybe they stick with the 6th spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if they move down to 7th. Now, the Dallas Mavericks, they lost a lot of like big games last week. I'm going to go ahead and like pull up some of the games that they lost. Their most recent loss in the schedule came against Philly without Joel Embiid, so that's definitely going to take a tank in their ratings. They also lost to the Boston Celtics. They beat the Raptors, and then they lost to the Cavs. So I wouldn't be surprised if this team ends up falling out of the top 10 completely and going down to like an 11th spot. Would not be surprised to see the Dallas Mavericks drop all the way down there. The Phoenix Suns, now Devin Booker, he went down with an injury, and they've sort of been like short-handed. So I wouldn't be surprised if because they've been short-handed, that's going to be taken into account, and they aren't going to drop in the power rankings. They're currently 6th in the Western Conference. However, they lost to the Rockets, even though they beat the Rockets the previous day. They beat the Lakers as well, and they actually lost to the Rockets twice. So maybe they don't even move. Maybe they actually move down from 8 to 9 going into these next power rankings, but we'll see going on later. The Bucks, they should probably move up, and like they should probably flip-flop between the Suns and the Bucks. So the Bucks are going to move up to like 8 or 7, and then the Suns are going to move down to like 9 or 10 possibly. And the Knicks, they probably might stay the exact same. Like even though in my personal opinion they should be higher, they have suffered like from injuries, and with that in mind, that is going to prevent them from getting a higher spot in the power rankings. Just looking at their schedule real quick and the teams that they beat the Cavs without Jalen Brunson, so that's definitely going to like help them in the power rankings. They also, however, they did lose to the Golden State Warriors and the Pelicans, so both of those are competitive teams, as well as losing to the Boston Celtics. So with that in mind, they might not even be in the top 10 going in. Now, just looking a little bit farther down, the Sacramento Kings are probably going to just maintain that same spot. The Pacers, they're definitely going to move down. They're going to move down back to 14th, but with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the updated power rankings and see exactly the results of what's to come. So obviously, like So the Nuggets are going up to the second spot. So yeah, the Boston Celtics, they are the best team in the NBA right now by far. They hold the biggest lead in their conference, and there's like absolutely no way that any team in the East could possibly catch up to their record right now. And yep, I was right. The Denver Nuggets, they deserve to be in the top 3, and they are in the top 3 at the second spot. And I wasn't surprised with the Timberwolves dropping down in rankings whatsoever. Let's see, the Timberwolves are probably like 3rd, right? Really? OKC is 3rd. After losing to the Lakers, they decided to put them at 3rd? Really? So then maybe the Timberwolves are directly after the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, I get the Thunder were on a pretty good winning streak, but losing to the Lakers should have made them tank like a lot. Let me go ahead and look at their schedule again. So they beat the Suns, but they lost to the Spurs. The Spurs are one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. So how on earth are they ranked number 3? And like they beat the Rockets, and they beat the Rockets again, but like sure, like those are bottom of the barrel teams, and these are like not good teams that they're winning against. How are they ranked 3rd? I don't agree. Like that, this is just wrong. I really do not agree with this ranking whatsoever. I said that the Clippers were going to maintain the 4th spot, and they did. So the Timberwolves, they gotta be like the 5th seed. They gotta be the 5th, right? Okay, they are the 5th, and like I don't agree with that. The Thunder and the Timberwolves, they should flip-flop spots. Like the Timberwolves should be here in the rankings, and the Thunder should be here in the rankings. And I don't know, maybe this guy has a little bit of a bias towards the Thunder, but it does not make sense to me how this team could lose to the Spurs, literally one of the worst teams in the West, and still hold a top 3 spot. That does not make any sense to me. So moving on. Wow, the Bucks, they moved all the way from, well, I was completely wrong. Like I said, the Bucks were going to move up, but I didn't expect they were going to move all the way up to 6. Granted, they did, like I said earlier, they were on a 6-game winning streak. So this has been the highest that they've been since losing Adrian Griffin, because I don't think that they've been higher than 7 or 8 in the power rankings. So this is very, very good news for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, let's see the next team. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Like I said, they should drop all the way down to around, like last week they were 6, so they should drop. I believe I said that we're going to drop like below the top 10. Might have been a little bit too harsh on them. And like it makes sense that Cleveland is ranked number 7. I think the Knicks should be ranked higher. Like, it might just be because, like, I'm a big New York fan, but still, like, the Knicks, they've only gotten better. And they beat the Cavs without their best player, and without Julius Randle, and without OG Anunoby. So with that in mind, like, the Knicks should be ranked higher than this Cavs team. Like, maybe I get it, maybe the Cavs had a bad game, but still, I just don't agree with that. And, like, again, like, they benefit with Max Strus's game winner, beating the Mavs. What? Okay, that is a team that I did not expect to make it all the way up to the top 10. The Miami Heat somehow jumped from 13 all the way up to 8 in power rankings. And what? Seriously? The Miami Heat? Like, I mean, I understand that, like, they're a good team, and like they're a great team with Jimmy Butler, but at the same time, like their prowess comes in the playoffs. So I'm very surprised to see them this high in the power rankings by only getting wins against the Kings, and like that's basically it. The only important wins that they got were against the Kings, because they lost to the Denver Nuggets 103-97. So very surprised to see this team in the top 10. Like, they haven't been in the top 10 whatsoever in any of the power rankings that I've done before. So seeing them in the top 10 is very, very surprising. The Mavs also seeing them in the top 10 is also very surprising. Wait, so does that mean that the Suns are out of the top 10 in power rankings? You're telling me you'd replace the Suns spot for the Miami Heat? Are you serious? I mean, maybe it's because they don't have Devin Booker and the Suns are not at full strength. That might be the reason why they got replaced in the spot. But still, like, seriously? Anyways, the Dallas Mavericks, like I said that they were going to drop down like at least 1 or 2. So seeing them at 9 is actually pretty generous. I think they should have been 10. So wait a minute. That means the Knicks aren't in the top 10 in power rankings. What? The Suns aren't even in the aren't even in the top 10 anymore. Are they like 11th? Okay, there they are. They're just ranked below the Kings, and I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I'm not a big fan of the Sacramento Kings and their play. Like, I just don't think they have the experience that they need to like make a deep run in the playoffs. And like I understand like this is just based off of like regular season things and like how they've been doing in the past week in the regular season, but like what they've been doing the past week in the regular season was losing to the Heat, losing to the Nuggets. Now they beat the Timberwolves, that's great, and then they lose to the Bulls. So like, why are they in the top 10? Why are they in the top 10? Does not make any sense to me, and I don't think that the Kings, pardon me for that noise, I don't think the Kings deserve to be in the top 10. They should be like ranked 12. They should stay at 12. Now, the Phoenix Suns, like they're ranked 11th in their in the power rankings. Very surprised to see them not in the top 10 for the first time in a while. They usually remain the exact same seed no matter what happens, or they usually remain the exact same ranking no matter what happens. And I'm very surprised to see them. So that means the Knicks got to be right after, right? The Knicks aren't even... I'm upset. The Knicks are not in the top 12. Where are the Knicks? They just beat the Cavs. What happened? Like, I understand, like, the Pelicans, like, I respect the Pelicans. They're a very organized team, and they have a very good big three with Zion, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum. But over the Knicks, just over the Knicks, are you serious? Just over the Knicks? The Knicks aren't even, like, they don't even have their best players. And they're winning a bunch of games without their best players. They should be ranked higher. But that's just me. The fact that the Sixers are moving up is criminal. The fact that the Sixers are moving up from where they were is absolutely criminal. They should be moving down. And they're gonna be. I have a prediction that they're going to be in the play-in very, very soon. And just looking at some of the games, like I get it. They beat the Mavericks, they beat the Hornets, they lost to the Celtics, and they lost to the Bucks. So I guess that win against like the Mavericks sort of like definitely helped them out going up against a bunch of these teams. And ending up winning the game. Like Dallas is like very, very questionable for me on the defensive side of the ball though. And like with the way that Dallas was playing against them, like it was almost like they had a bad day, I guess you could say. They had a bad game. And a lot of the players, like they played well, there were certain players that didn't really show up when they needed them to, and that was the reason why they ended up losing. The Orlando Magic should be higher than the Miami Heat. I'm just saying, the Orlando Magic should be higher than the Heat. They have a higher seeding than the Heat right now. They have a better record. We've seen a lot more out of them in the regular season. I know they don't get talked about that much, but we've seen a lot more out of them in the regular season than I've seen from the Miami Heat. I'm very surprised to see them in below the Miami Heat. This is where the Heat should be. Like, literally, this is where the Heat should be. The Heat should be here. And the Orlando Magic should be here. These guys shouldn't even be in the top 20. And the Knicks, they should move up to here. And then the Suns, they should move up to here. Either that or you flip-flop the Mavericks moving up to here, and then the Suns moving down to the 9th seed here. Like, these power rankings are not really my favorite, and I don't really disagree with power rankings most of the time. So this is like the first time that I've like really disagreed with these power rankings. But we have a couple more minutes, so let's go ahead and look at a few more. Why not? The Lakers, they move up from 18 to 17. Obviously, like, beating the Clippers definitely like helps them in the power rankings, and they're going to have doubters. They are obviously going to have doubters, but when you got somebody like LeBron James, I never doubt. And there's a very, like, until he's out, unless he goes up against Denver, I don't see the Lakers really losing against anyone just because of LeBron James. But that's just me. And wow, the Pacers are ranked 18th, and they move all the way down from 12 to 18. That is something I can get down with because they have great offense, but their defense is absolutely horrible. I say this every single time about the Pacers. Their defense is horrible. And that's something that's going to haunt them going into the postseason. And then we got the Chicago Bulls coming in at 19. And why don't we just come it off even and go off of 20? Houston Rockets, 20, so that makes total sense. And then the rest is bottom-feeding teams. So not really much that needs to be talked about with the power rankings anymore, given how I just went through that list. A little bit unhappy about how this list turned out. Not very happy, but let me know what you guys think of this list in the comments. Do you think it's accurate? Do you think it's good? Or do you think that the person who made these power rankings did not have a good night and was on something? But regardless, with that, we are out of time for with this segment, and we are out of time with the GSMC Basketball Podcast, and that is the end of the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates, as well as look at some of the shorts that all of us do, because we do like giving a lot of recaps, well, not really recaps, but a lot of updates on the sports world. In my particular end, I do the basketball, so I give a little bit of shorts on what's going on in the basketball world. So be sure to tune into some of that. But other than that, thank you guys once again for tuning in. Oh, I almost forgot. Before I end this the show, I like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized and to donate. It definitely helps the show. That is GSMCPodcast.net. The link is in the description, and it is displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. And that is the end of the show. I am your host, Nelson. Thank you once again. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.